TikTok, it's time to rock. I haven't done this for a while. I have to do this. I love doing this. It's almost like a rite of passage for the show. Oh, look at that. The rev's onto it. TikTok, it's time to rock. This is the 5150 show. The 5150 show that's dedicated to the Van Halen legacy. The 5150 show that talks Van Halen consistently. Man, that might be some lyrics for a song. What do you reckon, Rev?
Yeah, that's what we talk about every show. We try to stay on track, and we aim to please the people in the chat, right?
Wow, Brad, the backdoor man. Brad's going to tell everybody here on the 5150 show, in case you guys have missed it, what his nickname means, because it's very clever. It was something that was chucked at him on one of the Sunday shows that we've done. So there's a method behind the madness behind that cool name.
I was hoping you might be able to explain it, but I can if you want. Okay, we did a show on the Doors, and we did LA Woman, which is one of the albums that obviously Jim Morrison sings. Mr. Mojo Rising on one of the songs. He's singing Mr. Mojo Rising, singing that. So basically, what he did, Jim Morrison recreated he did it ingeniously, an anagram of his name by rearranging the letters to Jim Morrison to Mojo Rising. And one of our listeners, one of our supporters and subscribers, who was it, Andrew?
Deja Voodoo, another Australian.
another fellow Aussie with a good sense of humour, came up with Backdoor Man, or Backdoor. He rearranged my letters and my name to Backdoor.
Yeah.
If you and I were to have gone to high school together, Brad, that would have been my nickname for you, would have been Backdoor Man.
Awesome.
Well, Backdoor Man, there you go. So that's
hey guys, just hold on for 1 second, guys. We've our guest that we chucked the invite out is in the green room, so he can hear me. So we're just going to keep you there a little bit, mate, in the green room there for a little while. Don't run away. Go and grab a Coke, because we just got a few little things here that we got to do before we get you in. So the first thing that I want to do before I pass it on to the Rev is that I want to remind you guys that we've got some Instagram accounts there on the bottom that are really important and that are focused and connected to our channel. And if you guys haven't already done this, if you can pop over to Brad Cook Music, there's Brad's Instagram account. Check him out over there. He'll keep you happy and entertained. The Rev is revving EVH to the max over there on his Instagram account. Go and check him out. We are also streaming our show live on our 5150 Facebook group, and also on our All About the Blues, home of the British Electric Blues show. We're streaming there live too, so if you guys want to check us out there, if you're watching from over there on those platforms, say g'day. Oh, jeepers, before we do the intro, I'm going to pass it over to the Rev because he's got some shout outs to do.
Yeah, real quick, don't adjust your TV monitors or your computer screens. Yes, you are seeing a different version of me Just so you guys know, I'm actually taking a huge leap in my career. I've taken on a new job. Next week is my last week with the company that I've been for 19 and a half years. And they've given me a new computer system and a new camera system. And I've decided to switch it up. I'm in the same room that I'm always in. It's just flip-flop. Usually my camera's pointing this way. But so this will probably be the way that I'll do it from now on. But yeah, epic time in my life, and I'm ready for some new challenges and some new new green pastures. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Let's say hello to some people in the chat. Give me a second here, Andrew, as I pull them up. We got Keith Campbell is here. Nelson Rodriguez, he's been here for probably half an hour waiting for the show to start. So Nelson, thanks for joining. Teresa, of course, she's here. Thomas Santiago. Mikey Mojo. What's up, Mikey?
Hey, Mikey.
Chris Hunter. Ellen, of course, is here. Christine Taylor. Our boy John ZD351. John, big shout out for the promotion and help with some of the graphics on promoting this show on Instagram. Appreciate the efforts. John's done a good job of this show's worldwide, and in fact, you guys will see with our next guest coming in. He's not from Australia. He's not from New Zealand. He's not from the U.S. So what that causes is some real intricate time changes into when we have this show, and John has blessed us with a breakdown of time zones all across the World Wide Web to where anyone and everyone can tune in to this show. So thank you, John. Let's see, anyone else I've missed? I think that's about it for right now, unless we have a few stragglers. R2R3 Locky Nut is in here as well.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Look, so I'm going to do a bit of a show introduction. So this, the name of this show, is Balance 2. So the Rev, like a lot of Van Halen fans, has a separate category for the Balance album, and we look forward to discussing and talking about that. Brad and I have already done a show with Steve Anderson. Oh, jeepers. Maybe 7, 8, maybe 9 months ago. I don't know. A while ago. But last year. So I certainly, and like everybody in the chat, will be looking forward to hearing what the Rev has to say, because his perspective and his insight into all things Van Halen is unique and one of a kind, and the 5150 show is certainly lucky to have him here with us to share that insight. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, because this guy here, he's been a long time follower of our channel, a supporter of it. He supports what we do over on Instagram. He's I'm going to let him tell us his story, but here he is. Hey, brother.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I've been a long-time fan of the show, of course, you know. And, yeah.
Hey, man, thanks for joining. It's nice to finally meet you, buddy.
Yeah, awesome. I think the first balance discussion was actually my first introduction to the show, as a matter of fact.
Wow, awesome.
So, yeah, no, that was... and obviously a huge fan of the band. Absolutely, it's my favorite band of all time, as you can see behind me here.
Yep.
On this side.
Yeah.
Everything's flipped. And I just thought, when I heard that you guys were doing Balance again, I thought, no ways, I have to be on. I have to do this deep dive. I have to sit in on this. No. But yeah, 100%, such a great fan of the show. And let's get into it. Let's jump right into it.
Yeah, Luca, real quick, I may ask you a few questions. What country do you reside in, if you don't mind telling everyone?
I'm actually living in South Africa. A lot of people don't know that, and there's the rock scene here currently is it's really it's really died down quite a bit. So it's really difficult to. Well, we have a lot of access to mainstream music. I think the rock, the whole like classic rock, hard rock scene is really died down quite a bit, and yeah, we get a lot of mainstream stuff. So it is difficult to get a lot of access to rock. But nowadays with YouTube and with streaming and that, it's everybody's on the map there with that. Yeah.
Right. And those of you who don't follow Luca in any of the social medias, he's a musician, just like the rest of us. Great guitar player. Correct me if I'm wrong. You play piano, cello.
Yeah.
Maybe do you do any brass instruments or just?
I do saxophone. I actually haven't played saxophone in a long time, but I used to do that in high school.
Yeah, so, we're lucky to have such a diverse musical experienced background with some of our guests. We've been lucky, and to have you with us, Luca, is a treat. I know that because certainly we know you're a shit hot guitar player. And during the course of the show, I'll get your Instagram account and I'll put it in the chat. So if people haven't already sussed you out, they can. We'd appreciate people jumping over and having a look and seeing what you've got. Yeah. Brad, you've seen Luca. You've commented a bit on his posts, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, certainly. I'm one of these guys that I don't spend a lot of time, especially lately, doing the surfing thing. Like when I was in the early part of our lockdowns here, I was on Instagram a lot, just checking out all new guitar players, and you definitely flew under the radar. Like I saw your account and I liked a few things of yours, so definitely, mate. And I think Andrew's even alluded me to some of your stuff, which is how I discovered you. That might be actually how I discovered your page there. So, but anyway, for a roundabout's way, great player, man, and inspirational stuff on your page.
Thanks, I really try. No, I mean, like I say, I just do it for the love of it. I really, it's nothing short of that, and it's nothing more than that. It's nothing beyond that. I'm just making music, and whatever. I do a few covers here and there. I'm busy working on a cover now. It's a Rolling Stones tune again. But as a matter of fact, I think I did a cover of Seventh Seal last year, and that thing blew up. It blew up.
Yes.
And it's my goodness. I'm still getting views like by the dozens every day, and I don't know what it is. It's just the algorithm, I suppose. But anyway, cool. I mean, people enjoy watching it.
It's the playing.
And I'm such a fan of the tone, and we're gonna get into the tone of this album, and we'll get into it, of course. I'm just making music,
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So Andrew, you guys did this show December last year. It was you and Brad and Steve Anderson. You guys ranked the tracks. I actually went back and I watched the show live. I was probably in the chat with Luca during that live show, and I think that's the show that you guys invited me on to the next show.
Correct.
So I made the next show after the balance show, but I can't remember who was in charge of breaking down the album, but I think there's a lot of things that didn't really get discussed. You guys really deep dove into each track by track, and how you liked it, and highlights of each track. And I thought I would break down a lot of the technical pieces of the album, kind of go into the era, where the band was at the time, where the band ended after the album, all those things. If you guys are cool with that, I actually have 3 pages of notes, but we're probably not going to dive into ranking the tracks depending on how much time we get today. But I just want to kind of talk a little bit about the album in whole, and then we can kind of go around through each section and get your guys' input. Is that cool?
Oh yeah. Look, I agree with you, and we'll see how we go, because obviously we've always made the commitment, guys, haven't we, that if we can't fit everything into one show, we'd always come back and do another show because we want to be able to get a situation going where we're talking about some of the things that we've missed on previous shows, and having the Rev here go back with us and renegotiate some of these key things, because it's a great time. It's a great time for the band, and it's one of the contradictions of the band. So I obviously look forward to hearing what everyone else has to say about this album, including Luca and anyone else in the chat. But before we get into the band, I suppose, Luca, you better kick off with us and tell us how you negotiated this album. Were you like Brad and I? Did you line up to buy this album, or was it something that you fell upon, after it was released? Tell us that story, because that's always a cool thing to hear.
Yeah. I was actually obviously born after this album came out, and I think I should probably get into how I got into Van Halen. I think just for a brief moment.
Sure.
I think I was already into the whole classic rock scene. My dad had a few vinyls lying around and such. I think I got into like a lot of Deep Purple. There's a bit of AC/DC here and there. But mainly a lot of Deep Purple and that type of thing. And then I think Best of Both Worlds came out. And I must have been 5 or 6 years old. And when that came out, I saw this cover and I was like, what the hell is this? You see the cover and it's, obviously the stripes, and I was like, what the hell is this? I showed my dad and he's like, that's Van Halen. I was like, what the hell? Wow. And so whatever, I listened to a few songs before buying it, and I was blown away. I think everybody's told the story. It doesn't matter how you get into the band. You're just blown away by the sound and what Eddie was doing at that time, and just it's such a any song you go into, it's phenomenal. He really, like everybody says, and it's obviously the same story over and over again, but it's true, and you can't deny that he really changed. He changed what our ears were used to, and after that I was obsessed. Obviously that was Best of Both Worlds, so I had to, I got into each song from that album, obviously, and obviously tracked down all of the studio albums. And to be honest, I only got into Balance probably a lot later than that. But when I saw the cover, I was like, what the heck? what is up with the cover? And we'll get into the cover. I think I think Kurt will take us through that. I mean, the cover's really, it's something else, and it's, when you first see it, I think most people will be like, that's pretty disturbing. I think everybody can agree on that. It's quite
it's certainly freaky.
It's certainly freaky indeed. But I was intrigued nonetheless, And when I picked it up, that opening track, I was like, what the heck is this? What's going on? Am I in a cathedral or something? All these chanting monks and that. And when Seventh Seal kicks off, my word, yeah, I was hooked. But we'll get into the album, of course. But that's how I basically stumbled upon Balance, and where it ranks for me, I think. It depends on the day. I think we can all agree. It depends on the day where, Balance can rank from my favorite, to at least, the top two. I think, I think it's probably the best guitar sounding album of the Van Hagar era. We can all agree on that. It's such a great guitar record. It's really such a great guitar record, and criminally underrated. It's insanely underrated. So it's such a great album. And it's a personal favorite of mine. I think a lot of because I think with the Van Halen fans, there's a lot of diehard fans, and I think this will fall into that diehard fan category, whereas you get a lot of the fans, they know Van Halen, and they're into it and stuff, and I think balance falls out of the conversation in that regard. I really feel like it falls out of the conversation. They don't know it. I mean, and I think when we get into the tracks, I think the hits off of this album are, I think, we'll get into it, but I think they don't, I wouldn't say they don't represent the sound at the time that they were, that Eddie was probably pushing for. And I think a lot of that was obviously was Warner Brothers probably pushing it. And I think, the Can't Stop Loving You is a completely different track to a lot of the other songs on the album, and Not Enough and even Deja Vu, and we'll get into that. But the rest of the tracks are really this dark sound, and I actually only thought of it yesterday, when I went through the album again, of course, is that it's got like this fair warning type of ambiance. It comes through a bit. It's obviously not at all a similar album in beyond that, but it's got this fair warning, like dark tone to it. But obviously, like I said, the themes are very different. But it's basically, this is sort of the fair warning of the Van Hagar era. That's how I describe this album.
Good. That's a good description.
Yeah.
One thing you got, you talk about the album cover, and we'll grab the Japanese version since it has one kid on here. But I don't know, Brad or Andrew, if you've ever thought about this. At the time of this album, how ironic is it that Sammy Hagar's last album with the band had a toddler on it, and the last album with David Lee Roth had a toddler on it? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it does actually.
That kind of came to me when I was putting this together. That before, at 95, this was Sammy Hagar's last album, and it had a kid on it, and David Lee Roth's last album with the band had a kid on it as well. And Luca, you talk about how the album's dark, and I don't want to be clichéic and talk about how the album's balanced, but if you look track to track, it goes dark to pop, lighter song, to a darker, heavier song, to a lighter, poppier song, to a dark, heavier song, to a lighter, popular song. It truly does have that balance. And some of the research and some of the stuff I've read preparing for this show, Bruce Fairbairn actually went to Eddie and said, "Hey, we got to have some more radio hits for this album. This thing's too dark." Mm-hmm. And they came up with Not Enough and Can't Stop Loving You, and they added it to the repertoire of what went on the album, because it probably would have been a Sammy Hagar repeat, a fair warning, if it would have been up to Eddie. And the producer was the one that pushed these popular radio hits that I love, and they rank really high as far as my favorite songs go on the album. But it's crazy how there is a cliche balance with not only the number of slow poppy songs, but how many hard, darker songs there are on the album, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we can't underestimate the role of a good producer. And, obviously we're all rock and roll fans and rock and roll nuts, and we know that. And we take into account clearly, the albums that an artist has done. If they've done it with a really good producer, the album is great. It's got this great sound. But I think, Rev, you've hit the nail on the head there. Bruce's contribution to this album is yet to be written, and I look forward to more of the research coming out, and we're going to probably discuss this in this deep dive. But Don Landy is another thing too that we've been pushing on this show. Don Landy's contribution, where does that fit? Again, it's another chapter in this puzzle of what Van Halen is from the producer's point of view. And Brad, you know that because you've been in a studio, you've been produced, and you're self-produced. So tell us from your perspective why you think that producer is quickly, without drenching us with too much technicalities, why that's so important.
With a good producer, they will help you refine an abundance of ideas to make one good idea, if that makes sense. To refine a song, so you can have. I mean, I'm not as self-indulgent as I used to be 10 years ago as a songwriter. I used to come up with an intro that could have been a whole new song. Then the song would start, like the intro might go for a minute and a half before the singing even is anywhere near the song. And a producer will actually start to help you, a good producer with a good set of ears and gets the vibe of what you're doing will actually help you accumulate abundance of ideas, make one good song out of it, instead of making like a journey that goes for 20 minutes. What I'm sure we saw on Van Halen 3, Ed went a little bit too far with some of the songs and had too much. The reins were let go. He could do what he wanted, which is fine. But, sometimes a good producer can make a great song, an amazing song, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and Andrew, it's sad that Bruce is no longer with us, to where we may not hear a lot of those inside details about some of the albums that he produced. And of course, this album, one of my favorite albums is "Get a Grip" from Aerosmith that he did. But I was ecstatic when I found out that he was going to be producing this album, because I actually appreciated his work. And he put a good spin on the Van Halen song selection and the way he arranged it. Eddie talks about in a lot of interviews that he cracked the whip. I mean, it took 4 months, less than 4 months, for them to record this album. And if you look back at For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, OU812, 5150, and 1984, all those albums were like 9 months to a year of recording before they even started mixing them. And the band came to Bruce with 20 renditions of demos and songs that they were going to do for this album. And Bruce was like, are we going to do a double album, guys? We want to try to get this thing out for Christmas, and we don't have time for a double album. So we need to break it down to one single CD or single album. Let's figure out what songs we want to put on here, and let's get going. And they got it done in less than 4 months, which I thought was maybe where some of that rawness comes from, where they didn't overthink some of the stuff. A lot of the stuff maybe that they had thrown together was just thrown on tape versus overproduced, overmixed. And I think that's maybe where some of the darkness comes from. What are your thoughts on that?
Luca.
It's funny that you mentioned that it would have been a double album, because I think For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was also supposed to be a double album, I think, at some point. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. Well, obviously we have to get into the tone of this album, and I think I've tried. I've tried to incorporate the tone in a lot of my playing, and I think it's got the over mixed bass in Ed's sound, and obviously there's a bit more. I think that the mids are also a bit higher than on previous VH albums as well. But that harmonized sound, that dry wet sound, it's incredible. You feel like you're in you're surrounded by Ed's guitar. And I think that's what gives this album this atmospheric feel to it, and it feels like you're like thrown in the middle of this album. And I think that's also why I think that's the talent that goes straight to Bruce Fairbairn. That's all attributed to him. So I mean, yeah, like you say, we'll never be able to find out anything more from him. Sadly he's not with us anymore. But I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, and I think that there's also stories about the bass actually clipping when they were busy recording and stuff like that. But I think, like you were saying, the balance of this album, and I think you're quite right. It is actually a very balanced album. Mm-hmm. with the light and dark tracks and the poppy tunes and the real heavier tunes and stuff. And also, like you said, and I do see it, and I think Eddie's writing was starting to go. I don't want to say. I think Ed was taking over. He was really had hold of the reins from here on, more so than previously. And you sort of see it, and I mean, obviously the next album after this is Van Halen 3, after all, obviously there Ed had full, he was judge and jury,
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of can see it, in this album. Of course, you could sort of see Ed pushing it a bit more. He was going, his own way with the writing, and I think, he wasn't really taking any advice, maybe less than before, and like you say, he was Bruce approached him. It was like, listen, we need more pop tunes on you.
Yeah.
I've got a
Brad,
question that I want to ask you guys, if that's okay, and it's a question that I've come across on other shows that have been discussing the Van Halen balance tone. So, how responsible was Bruce in regards to the technical details, the settings of Eddie with the different time delays, the different amp settings? Was that something that you guys think Bruce had a big hand in, or was that just something that he just left completely up to Eddie? Kurt?
Mike Plotnick, who was the engineer, came to 5150 Studios 2 weeks before Bruce Fairbairn even got there, and he listened to Eddie's 20 demos and tweaked in Eddie's guitar sound and tweaked Alex's drum sound, and both Eddie and both Alex said, we want something different. We want to evolve. We don't want to repeat for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge or OU812.
Yep.
We want to do something different. And Brad, brace yourself. Alex even said, I didn't get a good drum tone on the last album. I want more.
Correct.
And like the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is obviously known as like Alex's, greatest drum album. But I think this one, it blows it out of the water. So Eddie worked with Mike on getting the tone that he wanted, and the Marshall Plexi amp was being rehauled over in Holland. So he had the peavey 5150 amps, and he really adopted the wet, dry, wet mix with the harmonizer in the studio, not knowing if he was going to have the Plexi 100-watt Marshall that had been on all the previous albums other than For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And he actually got it back halfway through recording, and he used it, which I'll get into as we get further in. Eddie used it on a few songs, and to my ear, I think he used it on all the guitar overdubs. So when he did all the harmonics and all the tapping and all the pick slides, to my ear, that's the Marshall. And then all the rhythm and major riffs was the peavey.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's a point that we need to bear out more and more, because a lot of people think that Eddie just turned up, plugged in, and had his settings, like a pedal board, bang, go. But as we know, if you go through and read some of the articles and a lot of the books that come out now, there's a lot of technical struggle and sweat that goes into getting, first of all, being able to translate, Luca. So you being a musician, you would understand this clearly. You've got something in your mind that you're hearing, but how do you get that out onto something that you can actually physically hear? And vice versa, you guys being musicians, you're hearing something, like Brad does a very, very good version of Seventh Seal too. He's been mucking around with that tone for a while. So you're hearing something that you've been listening to for years, and you're trying to replicate that too. That's not an easy process, and that's something that, obviously Eddie and the production team had to go through themselves.
I think they got the sounds right on this album all around. The drums, the guitars, the bass, the vocals. I mean, we're talking about guitar tones a lot, but the whole album, in my opinion, is the best tonality album of all the instrumentation, without a doubt. Even though it's interesting, like you mentioned, this is like the fair warning. I saw Carnal Knowledge more like a fair warning, Sammy's fair warning, and this was a bit of an amalgamation of 5150 and fair warning together, if that made sense. This album, but this one had obviously the guitars. There was a lot more focus on the drum sound, and the bass sound was just phenomenal. Like the vocal tone, like recording a vocal, people think you get a vocal mic, you start recording. It's not. There's different techniques and everything like that, and I think they for some reason they got it right with every part of this record. There's certain things that are lacking on certain records in the past, and I think they got to that point in their career where they went, we know how to get what we're hearing in here to tape, and they just somehow managed to do that. I think once from my perspective, when you're songwriting and recording especially, if you get a good drum sound, then the rest of everything falls into place. And I don't know if you guys understand it or whether that's something that you've acknowledged yourselves. If I manage to get a great drum sound, the guitars sound good, the bass, because you're sort of working off a really strong foundation. If the drums are weak, doesn't matter how big the guitars sound, it's going to sound pretty wishy-washy to me. That's just my opinion anyway. But they got it right on this record. And it's sad because the next record I was hoping for it to be an extension of like Balance, but again, something new,
Yeah.
Thanks, Teresa.
Let's back up a little bit. I got a few things I wanted to throw out there as far as what was going on with the band before this album even got started. I really
it's an important it's an important part. It's an important part of the band.
3 years, almost 4 years between studio albums. So if you think about it, Brad, almost 4 years since From Lawful Carnal Knowledge was finished and when they started recording this. That's a big gap, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of time and energy and stuff they've written on the road and all that stuff's compiling. So I think it's been a long time since they actually were in a studio producing an album. Their manager, Ed Leffler, had passed away and died. So they were dealing with the whole managerial change, the death of, Eddie and Alex called Ed Leffler their dad, like their second dad. And he was Sammy's best friend. So that also was a big shift in what was going on with the band. They had a new manager in Ray Daniels. Obviously, we all know that it was Alex Van Halen's wife's brother-in-law. So there was that family connection. He was from Canada. They were in the United States, and he was there for 1 week, and then he would go back to Canada. If you guys read this book, great interview from Ray Daniels. But him being a new manager, Sammy was freshly divorced. Wolfgang was no longer a baby. He was a toddler, and Eddie was having to be more of a father than in the past when, Wolfie was a baby and he could do his thing. Eddie and Al were experiencing major medical issues with Eddie's hip, Alex's neck. Eddie became sober during this time, and I know he was fighting, getting clean, drinking again, getting clean again. He was seeing a East Indian psychologist that was helping him meditate and get his mind right to where he didn't rely on alcohol. New producer, right? We know they used Andy Johns with the Live Right Here, Right Now, and From Lawful Carnal Knowledge, and then they had Don Landy for the first couple albums. So whole new producer. And then the biggest thing is the grunge era. Hard rock was teetering, and grunge was kind of at its peak at 94. And I kind of got a quick list of bands because I was 17 when this album came out, so I was very prevalent to the music scene at the time. Pearl Jam, Bush, Stone Temple Pilots, Alice in Chains, Offspring, Soundgarden, 9 Inch Nails, Green Day, and Black Crowes. Those were the top 10 bands at the time. And if you
What
think
a
about
what
the
an
hard
era!
rock, I mean, those are some big hitters, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Brad, what do you think about all those things I just named that influenced the making of this album? Those are some big levers.
100% agree. Couldn't have said it better, really. There was so many factors going on behind the scenes for this record. A lot of the, you can hear, you can feel a lot of that in the songs, in my opinion. I hear a lot of that in the songs going on, the stuff that's going on within the band. The other bands were a big, that you mentioned, were obviously, in my eyes, I don't think Van Halen ever really tried to follow trends that much. They acknowledged it, but they never really tried to follow trends too much. There's a slight nod on this to the grunge thing a little bit, but they didn't sort of do the typical, we need to write a grunge record now. I don't think they quite did that. I think they stuck to their, you think about Carnal Knowledge coming from that to the next record, they come out with another powerful record. They did it quite well, but the time difference, the time between the records, the stuff that was going on internally within the band, the problems that are all going on. Ed's, he's back and to and fro with his addictions and things like that. Like there was a lot of things that were, that quite heavily influencing the sound of this record for sure.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, bro. I remember listening to a radio show, The Axe Attack, and a guy called Paul Martin was the host, and he wrote this album off after it was released, and my friends and I were just devouring it. He wrote it off because it just sounded like tired old Van Halen, and it wasn't contemporary, didn't have that contemporary, grunge feel. And I remember listening to it, this video, radio show, thinking, well, yeah, that's precisely why this album's cool, because it hasn't bought into that bullshit.
It went number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It went number one when statistically it shouldn't have gone number one. If Metallica,
Why?
Came out with an album in '95, those albums wouldn't have gone number one. Van Halen did.
Yeah.
I mean, what other bands would you lump in with Van Halen in '95?
Well, here's some photos.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, bro, but here's a photo that Pete, one of our viewers, just flicked through to me. So, this is from the era there. Look at that. That's a sold-out gig.
Yeah.
Incredible, yeah.
Powerhouse band.
Yeah. I mean, think
Sorry,
about
Becca.
Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith. What other hard rock bands were on the rise or going to bounce back in '95? Not very many.
You hit the Stones with Voodoo Lounge.
Yeah,
Voodoo Lounge was,
Like
but that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it, bro. You've hit the nail on the head, though. Most of the bands were, the up-and-coming contemporary bands, but, Van Halen and the Stones were about it.
And I think the Stones had a huge break as well, actually, between Voodoo Lounge and their previous album. I think it was Steel Wheels. They had a huge break. Yeah, it was like 5 years or so.
5-6 years. Yeah, big break, brother. Yeah.
I think Van Halen was able to traverse all the changes and everything that was happening in music at that time, and Balance is proof of that. And I think even Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is proof of that. And you can go back. Each album is proof of that. They were able to adjust to the times and give what was mainstream at that time a nod, and that was basically it. And they were able to carry on. And I mean the proof is at the end of the day that they're all great albums, and that is why all these albums went to number one and at the end of the day were all phenomenal albums.
Yeah. Bent Tom, Smashing Pumpkins. So Seventh Seal was nominated for a Grammy. it lost to Smashing Pumpkins, Bullet and Butterfly Wing. That's the song, I think. Yeah, in '95.
Siamese Dream was the album. That their third album after Gish. It's a great album.
Yeah.
It's a great. Yeah.
But I think they did well. This album could have bombed, and it didn't bomb. And damn it, why didn't they keep it going?
Well, that's one of the contradictions, isn't it, about this album, and it's something that Van Halen fans are definitely going to be talking about for a long, long time, because you know, we've got I just want to hold on. I'm sure the Rev has got some pics, but look, we've got a new look Eddie, you know, with the short hair, you know. And do you remember everyone was freaking out on the back of the cover, you know, this guy with the long locks, you know, look like Brad. He's got these long locks there, and all of a sudden, you know, he's got short back and sides like the Rev, you know, with highlights going on, and he's wearing glass. It was like, you know, I'll be honest with you guys, I was captivated. I was just blown away. This is you know, because the visual is really important to rock and roll. Rev.
I know I've shown this before.
Hold on, brother. Oh, here we go. He's going to show off. Here we go.
It's going to be hard to focus in on this.
Yeah.
This was the Balance Out era. I went and saw this freaking concert in '95, September 16th, and I was blown away. I had been a Van Halen fan since I was 7 years old, and it took me 10 years to finally see him live. And I saw this Balanced tour. Never missed a tour since. Saw everyone after that. But man, I saw Eddie come out with that ernieballmusicmanaxis amber with the 5150 stickers on it. And, you know, they're doing Seventh Seal, Pound Cake, Big Fat Money, Aftershock, you know, Mine on Mine. It was just like, at 17, like, I'm surprised I didn't get 15 girls pregnant that night, because I was just like, it's like shooting a hand grenade. Yeah, it was awesome to see them live in high school. And I can't remember if I've told the story or not, but my best friend was having a party around Christmas time, and they premiered the Balance album in between Christmas and New Year's on the radio station. And this house is full of people. There's probably 60, 70 people. I'm a junior in high school. Beer, girls, and I'm upstairs in his sister's room listening to the whole premiere of the Balance album from start to finish. And everyone's like, Kurt, come down here and party. No, I'm listening to this Van Halen premiere. And then as soon as it came out, I skipped school and went and bought the CD.
Good boy.
And at 17 in 1995, audio stereo systems were a pretty big deal in the United States. And I had a pretty sweet system. And I threw that thing in, and I heard those monks chanting and those bells going, and then the riff on Seventh Seal, and the bass drums and the toms and the ride that Alex was doing. I was just like, it was breathtaking. Like, it blew me away, threw me back in the seat of the car, and I wasn't even going anywhere. Like, amazing album. And even after listening to this thing over the last 2 weeks, Balance has kind of always been in my top 5, but like, it's shot up there to number 1 or number 2.
Do you guys think that this album's aged very well?
Yeah,
I do.
Who's got the mic?
I'm probably going to set the cat amongst the pigeons here, but some of the Van Halen records to me sound heavily dated, where this one doesn't.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. Yeah.
So what do you guys think, Andrew?
Bro, I'm just going to do a quick couple of shout outs before I answer that, if that's okay. We've got Cobra Kai in here, we've got Bent Tom in here, we've got Mikey Mojo, guys, if we don't give you guys shout outs during the course of the show, please forgive us because we're too busy talking, but I'll always do the best I can to highlight your comments. Thank you for joining us. Bro, look, I listened to this album 4 times during the course of the week at work, and I know that the Rev shared a couple of comments with us on Instagram with us about this album, that it's phenomenal. And I think one of the great things for me is that I've gone back and I've listened to this album with a fresh set of ears after Eddie passing, from start to finish, twice, and then just listening to the CD in the course of a couple of days with it stopping and starting up again. And I'm looking forward to going back listening to the Van Halen 3 because I haven't done that yet, and I know that you guys have mentioned that we need to do that because there's something in the music when someone passes, and we know that because we're all rock and roll nuts. We know that the music is metaphysical, it transcends time, and that's why we spend so many hours talking about it. But I think you're right. I think you're right with this album, and maybe it's because for me it's full of those contradictions. Kurt, you mentioned earlier that there's a balance to the album, the soft songs, the harder songs, but you've also got the personalities behind the band, this whole play acting out that we didn't know at the time. So look, I got to agree with you too, Luca. I think it's fresh. It's a fresh sound. And it goes back again to the production team. I think they got it right. There's something about this album that they got it right. And Brad talks about this on some of the other shows that we do, with where the bass is situated in relationship to the drums and where the vocals are situated. And I don't know that technical stuff. I just know because I hear something and I like it and it sounds good. And it equalizes in my head and my ears. And this is what this album does for me. Sorry to be protracted with my answer.
Perfectly fine.
So, Brad, walk me down memory lane with you in this album. I know you rushed out to get For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Walk me down 4 years later, what you were doing, when you got it, what your reaction was when you listened to it, when did you hear it first, those kind of things.
Yeah, well, I heard it. I lined up to get it the day it was released, and I put it on in my car, and I had a reasonably good sound system in my car at the time. It was an old car, but I always put a decent CD player in it, or speakers at least, so it could crank it.
Yeah.
And when Seal came on, I was just like, the car was engulfed with the Tibetan monks, and then the boom, in with that big intro, and I just went, wow, we've got Carnal Knowledge Part 2 here straight away. I was in. I was like, this is like Carnal Knowledge Part 2 for me, but obviously a bit different. But like the second song when it comes in, I wasn't expecting that straight off the bat. I wasn't expecting Can't Stop Loving You to come in like a song with that sort of, catchy, poppy sort of vibe to it. Second song in, I was expecting it maybe third or fourth song, usually about fourth song. I always expect those sort of numbers. And it was like contrast to the first song. And it just, every time that the next song would come in, I was like shocked, because I was like, I didn't expect that. So especially looking back at the songs now that actually really did smack me around the back of the head with a 4x2 piece of timber, were songs like Aftershock and I've got to say, like Feeling and Not Enough, that those songs, they were, other than like Seven Seal and the riff in Amsterdam and things like that, and I don't have a problem with the lyrical content on this record at all. I just think it was in continuity with the songs and the feel of the band and where they were at that particular time. My only disgruntled thing about this record is them leaving Crossing Over off it. But I only heard that like many years later. I never heard it initially because I never got the Japanese release. But for me, this record, I remember it was all I listened to for about, I don't know, year and a half, maybe 2 years, anything else just didn't sound as good to me. That anything, even stuff that was coming out at the time, I'm a massive
production. That's why.
Yeah, I'm a massive Guns N' Roses fan. I'm a massive, alternative rock, if you want to call it that, like Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, all those bands. I love them just as much as I love Van Halen. And but this album just had it. The sound had everything that I wanted to hear musically. It was just amazing, and it still is to this day. So I mean, it doesn't date to me, this record.
Yeah, awesome.
Tonality
Andrew,
wise,
I know you have this CD still in your van that you drive to work every day, back and forth to work every day.
Yep.
Tell me about how it affected you when it first came out, and what your reaction was hearing it first, and that time.
Yeah, sure. I love talking about Van Halen. That's what we're here for, guys. So yeah, thank you, Rev. Look, so I remember hearing the single, the first single. Now, just hold on, guys. I'm just getting my notes here because I don't want to.
Can't Stop Loving You. No,
yes.
Don't tell me what loving you.
Don't tell. Yes. So I remember hearing that. Dun, 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 on the radio at work, and it's like, so we've already mentioned this. The Rev's already mentioned the top 10 albums, around the time this album was dropped, and hearing that on the radio, on a contemporary rock station radio, just stuck out. It was just this, it wasn't Black Hole Sun by it wasn't Nirvana, and this is all good stuff.
Had come and gone.
Yeah.
Nirvana was gone by the time this album came out.
Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah. So there was something to this, to that start of that song, and again, this is what I really love about Eddie. He can just pull us in just with a couple of those notes. Seventh Seal, we've just discussed that. And I can't wait to talk more about that specific song, because I think in 20, 30 years' time, I think that song is going to be a standalone song. I think they're going to be discussing that song because of the lyrics, the music, the journey, the storytelling, everything. But we got a sample of it, didn't we, with the tone, with the first song. But I remember I heard this, and I was driving somewhere. I think I was driving to my girlfriend's place at the time or something like that, and I had to pull into Charvel Square to go and get the CD, and I put the CD on, and like everybody, like all Van Halen fans, we dropped it in, and hearing these, I didn't know they were Tibetan monks at the time. I just thought, I knew they were monks. So, you got to remember a few years before that, Gregorian chant albums were in the top 10. So I thought, oh, yeah, maybe they're, the Benedictine monks going, something like that, But then you read, a little bit later, that, the Tibetan monks doing that throat singing. Caught me, just grabbed me. And then, obviously, that single, the solo, that intro solo, it's just fantastic. Thank you for asking that question, Rev, because I'm going to turn that back on you and Luca. So, it just blows me away. And listening to it the last week has just brought, I'll be honest with you, brought a tear to my eye, because one of the great things about that song especially is that it's talking about these big things, life and death, the struggle, and Eddie's past, splash that holy water on me. It's like, wow.
The world coming to an end.
Yeah.
It's a very meditative song, and like you mentioned earlier, like Eddie was doing meditation and stuff like that. I think that's basically where the song was born from. And obviously the loss, losing Ed Leffler, and the changes that the band was going through, and the issues and the struggles, Eddie's struggles, and I think it's all summed up in that song. It really is. And I mean, obviously the Seventh Seal is from the Bible. It's from I think it's Revelations or something.
Revelations, yep.
It is, yeah. And yeah, no, it's that's exactly what it is. And for me, the first time I heard it, being an opening track, I think it's the mother of all opening tracks. It really is.
Luca,
yeah.
You make a good point. Eddie's really opening up his life and what's going on in that time of his life with these Tibetan monks chanting. Think back to, for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, the opening track was the drill on Pound Cake, and then OU812 with the keyboards on Mine Oh Mine. And then 5150 with Sammy Hagar saying, "Hello, baby." Like, he's basically opening up to the world as, "Hey, I'm here. I'm the new singer. Take a look at me." 1984 opening track is 1984 with the synthesizers. He's like letting everyone in the world know that, hey, this is what this album's about. Even the first album with the intro to Running with the Devil. I think there's a theme here where they give people a piece of what they're getting into the first 5 seconds of the first song on a lot of these albums.
That's how it should be. That's how.
Yeah.
I do remember I ran out and purchased when Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do came out on CD single, so I grabbed that first. I actually grabbed that before the album, but I remember specifically I thought that was still, within the vein of what they did with Carnal Knowledge, but obviously just an extension. And then everyone was like, "Oh, so grungy." I'm like, I didn't really pick up on the grunge thing until people made it obvious to me. But that's just, truthfully, that's just how I see it. I don't see it as grunge.
Yeah, I think Don't Tell Me, I think that intro is probably as grunge as this album gets, I think. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really.
well, Seven Seal didn't have a guitar solo on it. And that was, to me, was grungy. That was the kind of the time of the times,
Yeah.
Your guitar solos weren't in anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this album is full of them. I mean, going through the tracks, there's like 3 songs that have 2 solos. And some have some amazing outro solos as well. Yeah. So it was almost like, I'm not going to follow what everyone else is doing, but I'll dip my toe in the water, but still do my own thing.
I think Seven Seal, the outro, there's an overdub guitar that's just doing almost like a sustained note thing. It's sort of I wouldn't say it's solo, but it's sort of like an outro extra.
Yeah.
So,
and Eddie's he's been quoted in some interviews saying that he didn't do a solo for that song. That's the only reason
Oh yeah. Well, it does fade out, so we don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
He probably could have made it up. With the album, we were going to talk a little bit about the album. Originally, they were going to call it Seven Seal. Bruce Fairburn decided it was a bad idea because he thought it was going to hinder the song, The Seventh Seal, and he thought it was going to put too much expectation on that song itself because it's the title of the album. They were going to call it The Club, which is what the band called Ed Loeffler's house. They called it The Club because that's where they would congregate, have their meetings, get out of the studio and relax and get away from the hoopla. But I think it was too emotional to call it The Club because it was a little too soon after his death. So after they did the picture of the kid on the teeter-totter with the twin, that's when they came up with the name Balance after this photo was taken. Did you guys know that?
Say that again, brother?
So they didn't come up with the name Balance until after this photo was taken, and they decided to use this as the album cover. That's when they came up with the name Balance for the album, was when they decided to use this photo as the album cover.
Yeah, as far as I know, it was until then it was the Seventh Seal. Is that correct?
Yep, Seventh Seal, or they were going to do The Club. And then, of course, if you guys know, this is a transposed picture. Originally, it's just a kid sitting here by himself, but they doubled with Photoshop and put 2 kids. And if you look real closely, this kid's pulling this kid's hair, and that's why he's crying. and the photographer that took this photo, that's his kid pulling the kid's hair behind the teeter-totter, and you can't see him, and they photoshopped it to make it look like the other kid was pulling the other kid's hair when actually it was someone else's arm pulling the kid's hair.
Okay, so
I think
so
Photoshop
for you
was
guys, for you guys in New Zealand and the UK, a teeter-totter is called a swing.
Or seesaw.
Here, a seesaw. Yeah, sorry, seesaw. Yeah,
yeah.
teeter-totter. Sorry, Luca.
And I was gonna say, I think Photoshop was also really new at that stage.
It
I think
was, yeah.
People were having endless fun with it at that time. Yeah.
Yep. Then of course,
See
they're
that
in
comment?
It's Wolfgang.
It's Wolfgang.
No,
No.
it's not
No.
Wolfgang. They've
It
been
looks
asked.
like him, but it's not.
Yeah.
They were asked if it was Wolfgang, and they said no. It's in an
Before
apocalyptic.
Photoshop. What?
Yeah, it's in an apocalyptic background, so it's supposed to make it look like the world's coming to an end. And of course, they had to come up with this version for the Japanese version of the album because
Censored.
having a kid with disability is against their culture. And originally, the band was going to have this kid here, and they were going to have another twin as a ghost back here standing behind him, looking at him. And then they said, no, that's too morbid. So they went with the single kid on the album cover. The other thing, too, Andrew, which it's crazy, not on this American version, but on the Japanese version, you can see the can of Coke.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So tell people about that, Rev.
So in 92 or 93, Crystal Clear Pepsi went to Warner Brothers and said, hey, we're going to use Van Halen right now as our song to roll out this Crystal Clear Pepsi brand. And Van Halen said, no, we don't want to sell out. Like, that's not what we were about. You know, as you guys know, they weren't big on doing advertisements. Well, Pepsi said, well, we already got the okay from Warner Brothers. If you guys don't let us use this song, we're going to have someone else redo it, and we're just going to redo your song. So Van Halen said, screw it. If you're going to use our song, you might as well use ours. Make some money with it, maybe sell some new records. So they let him use it for the Crystal Clear Pepsi. It aired in the Super Bowl. I think it was 93, the Super Bowl. And then they put the can of Coke on the back of this album as kind of a Easter egg of flipping off Pepsi. Like, screw you guys. We don't buy out to corporate America. That's why we drink Coke.
Yeah. So if Coca-Cola wants to sponsor our show, send us messages.
We probably couldn't arrange that. I worked there for 5 years, Andrew. I know some people there.
Yeah, we're open to sponsorships.
Yeah. And then I know the inside of the album with is it Da Vinci, right?
Yeah.
The under something lyric. What is it? The man something.
The Vitruvian Man.
That's it. Here we go. Luca. All right, we'll throw Luca on. There he is.
Yeah. The Vitruvian Man.
Vitruvian. That's it.
That should have been the album cover, in my opinion.
Mate, no argument.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I agree with you.
And then I also like the egg balancing on the Strat
yeah.
too, which was cool. I wonder what guitar that is. If it was just one they had in the studio, or if it was actually Ed's. It looks like a really dark colored Strat with a rosewood fingerboard, which typically wasn't something he would play. Yeah.
So I've got a question for you guys. So what do you think then if they did a reissue or a re-release of this album, they released the songs that weren't issued that were around this album, and they released these different album covers? Wouldn't that be a great package?
100%.
Yeah, I think it would be. I know we're probably not going to have time to jump into the tracks tonight, but I think it's absolute blasphemy that they did Strung Out instead of Crossing Over. Yeah. If they would have put Crossing Over instead of Strung Out, this has probably been the best album ever produced in my lifetime, in my opinion. I mean,
I'm going to agree with you.
Out of the moon. Yeah.
Have we discussed that before on a show?
Yeah. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. What do you think, Luca?
Well, I think they should have left, as you see on Best of Both Worlds, not enough has strung out in it already. It's one track. They should have just left it like that, not made strung out a separate track, and then just thrown crossing over on there. Done. There's your 12 tracks.
I think they had time restraint though. Was it? Was there a time restraint on it? Is that why they pulled crossing out off it, Kurt?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember. There was something to do with that.
Yeah, maybe.
But I agree. I think it's criminal. I think it's criminal that they left off crossing over. But I think crossing over was already. I think parts of it were already recorded. I think as far back as '83. So I mean, if there were time constraints, I mean, I suppose it was just probably, updating crossing over, and adding a lot of the overdubs and obviously the vocals and I don't know in what form crossing over was.
So Crossing Over was recorded by Ed in '83 by himself. He did the drum track, the bass, and the guitar, and sung. And then he presented to the band in '91 when they did For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and they decided not to put it on. And then after Ed Loeffler died, Sammy brought it up to Eddie and said, "Hey, we should bring that track back up that you recorded." They worked on it. Alex and Sammy did the vocals on the right. And Alex did another drum track. And then on the left is Eddie with the bass, guitar, vocals, and drums. And they merged them together. And that's the version they came up with. They were going to put it on the track, and then it became too emotional to them. And they decided it was too soon since Ed Loeffler's passing, because Sammy's lyrics were based on Ed's passing. And they put Deja Vu instead of Crossing Over.
Well, Rev, can you answer this question then? So, earlier this year, I think we were lucky enough to get a video clip of Eddie playing. Is it Amsterdam? Amsterdam.
Yeah.
In the studio as well. So what's the story behind that tune, and how did that tune get onto the album?
So that tune's been around a long time. I think before that 86, 87 video that we saw, I think it's been around longer, and it's just been pushed off and not used, and finally they got to using it on this album. And there's actually the intro to Take Me Back, Deja Vu, was a song from the club days called give me a second here, No More Waiting. So all you guys in the chat after this show, plug in YouTube 1977 Van Halen, No More Waiting. You'll hear the intro is Deja Vu, and then also Blue Ethereum. The riff on that was a leftover from Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Yeah. And part of it was taken from Trevor Rabin as well.
So there's a question for you guys there from Keith.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's classic.
Yeah.
They loved doing the Jon Stewart show. I think they did like 3 of them.
Yeah, I think the opening show, I think, what is it, Florida? I think Jon Stewart still comes on and he still introduces the band, yeah.
Yeah, he interviewed them at the restaurant when they were doing the... Yeah.
They're still goofing backstage and stuff. I remember that was funny.
Yeah. I have I guess we'll call it a controversial topic as well. We know that Eddie was kind of in the outs halfway through either making this album or during the tour with ernieballmusicman switching to peavey. And when I saw him live, he used the peavey Wolfgang for Not Enough. And we also saw him use the peavey Wolfgang for Not Enough during the David Letterman show.
Yep.
And he used Peavey Wolfgang in the Not Enough video on MTV. Did he use a prototype Peavey Wolfgang on that song? And we don't know it.
Sure.
There's a mind drop for you.
Yeah, because on that solo, I don't know what the effect is.
It's Leslie's preamp stomp box.
Oh yes, yeah. It's because
he borrowed from his guitar tech.
Yeah, because it does have a very different tone, but I mean it's not very obvious. You don't. Yeah, and it is a very different sounding song, so it makes it even more difficult to really tell. That is a very good question.
I don't know. Nerd Halen's in here. What do you think, Caleb, about him using the Peavey Wolfgang on that song? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me him having a prototype in the studio.
Yeah.
And I think Not Enough was one of the last songs they recorded for the album as well.
Could definitely be the Peavey then.
Yeah, it's possible.
There you go. Leave it up to me to have someone chime in and tell me that I'm wrong 10,000 times. I'm okay with it.
What do you think about Keith's comment about the Marshall being used on all the solos on this album? I know that you mentioned earlier that there was certainly overdubs, and I think Luca, to your ear too, you're sure that that Marshall was there, but yeah, look, I'm tone deaf, but I can pick up something going on, especially through headphones.
Oh,
especially.
The Marshalls on.
What do you think, Brad?
I used to have the Peavey 5150, and I know that tonality, and it's definitely all over the album. But there's a Marshall tone as well there, without a doubt. Especially on Aftershock, I think that's all Marshall. Pretty sure that's all Marshall, that one.
If you listen to this album with headphones, like Andrew says, and you listen to the overdub tap harmonics, the pick slides, the volume swells, all the little things that he's adding on to the main riff, they have a different tone, and it's almost that classic Van Halen tone that we're all used to.
I actually think there's just more reverb as well. I think there's a lot more reverb on those little tidbits. And I think there's a slight bit of compression, especially from those overdubs, especially like some of those, little slides and the volume swells. There's a bit of compression on there. And I think that also might be, I don't know if it's maybe the Marshall. I don't know if it's on every song, but there is definitely something going on there, for sure.
Yeah. My take on it is sorry, Kurt.
The feeling, the clean tone on that is the clean channel on the 5150 for sure. You know how dirty it is?
Very dirty.
Yeah.
I think definitely the guitar bed tracks on the record are done with the Peaveys 100%, the 5150s. You can hear that. If you're familiar with what they sound like, there's a slight sizzle to a 5150 that a Marshall doesn't have. And a Marshall has a little bit more growl, a little bit more crunchiness, and a little bit more growl. So you can definitely hear where the Marshall's blended in there. That's to my ears. I'm a Marshall guy, so a Marshall sort of stands out to me.
Yeah.
But I had a 5150, and the reason that I can say I reckon all the beds on the record are done with the 5150 is because I could hear that tonality. So.
Yeah, and think about it. If his Marshall was being fixed by, what was this guy's name? Peter from Holland, and he didn't get it back until they're halfway done recording the album, maybe he did use the Marshall on all the touch-ups and overdubs that they added after the meat of the songs. Yeah.
So definitely a lot, and I mean that's a really common thing for a lot of artists that do a lot of, guitar players that do lots of overdubs. It's nice to use a different amp for some of to get some sonic spread instead of it all being so the same. But my last band I was in, we used one amp for all the beds. We used one amp for like overdubs, and then any clean guitars and stuff we used like a Vox or a Fender Reverb clean. Yeah. And then we used Telecasters for some overdubs, Strats for overdubs, and Les Pauls for all the meat in the songs. So I'm not saying that's what he did, but I can definitely hear that Marshall on some of these tracks. Aftershocks 1, if you really listen to that, that's a Marshall for sure, in my opinion. And but you can still hear a peavey bed. So there's some rhythm tracks there with the peavey for sure.
I can't remember. Is that solo overdubbed in Aftershock?
No, that he could be running a Marshall together. Like what I'm saying, they could be running it together.
Channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't make that clear. If he's doing overdubs, like a lot of the beds you're hearing might be all the peavey, but then there's overdubs and they're running. So each time he's tracking, there might be 2 amps or 3 amps. I think he used to use wet and dry a lot. Yeah. So one overdub would be, say, the Marshall and the peavey together. Then the next one would be the same, and then maybe. But the peavey's on there a lot on that whole record. I think the peavey's the bed sounding, the foundational sounding of the guitars on that record, 100%.
And I think Ed said, he's just plugged straight into his 100-watt PV, 5150, and then that was it. That was basically like you say, the foundation of the album.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions. Sorry, bro. Keep going. No. Okay, all right. So, sorry. I hate interrupting when you guys are on a roll.
What to talk about on this album? That's the thing.
Well, there's a couple of questions that I want to throw out for you, for the hosts, and obviously for the cats and kittens in the chat too. So, we like talking about some of the stories, some of the dramas that were going on behind the scenes around some of the albums. So, we know that Eddie was having, issues with sobriety around this time. When they were recording the album, there was just a little bit of tenseness between the Van Halens and Sammy, but nowhere near to the point that happened later on during the tour when they were, basically not associating at all except for on stage. But there's a couple of comments there that guys are putting in the chat about, the departure from Music Man to peavey. We're a show that doesn't mind talking about some of the theories that are out there. Do you guys have any opinion on why these things happened? Do you want to offer a commentary, Rev, Brad, and Luca?
Well, the I was waiting for Kurt to say something. I saw his screen just he pulled himself out. So you go, Kurt.
I don't have any comment.
He was having trouble, wasn't he? He was having issues with the supply of the Music Man.
Yeah.
He was disappointed with that. Is that the story? And then he obviously reached out to peavey and they started giving him some prototypes, didn't they? Is that the story?
Yeah, and then obviously there's the other story too about, Eddie apparently, and it's all over the internet. I don't know how truthful it is, but, it's always an interesting little backdrop, isn't it? That he was having a relationship with Sterling's wife, which is interesting. It's one of the great things, one of the great ingredients that goes into a rock and roll band, isn't it? It's why we like it. These guys are great musicians, but flawed geniuses at the same time. And that's why we love them. Because they're human. They make mistakes, probably the same mistakes that some of us have made, but certainly those day-to-day issues and struggles and trials are something that that I like. I like to hear that because it just gives a bit of a depth or a dynamic to the band rather than this glossy Rolling Stone article image.
What I wonder is how many other albums did he use that excuse me, Ernieball Musicman Amber on? Did he use it on any tracks for Van Halen 3? Did he use it on Best of Both Worlds? Did he use it on Different Kind of Truth? Who knows?
It's hanging up in 5150 on the wall, bro. It's right there.
I know.
Yeah. As far as I know, Ernieball Musicman is a very
Caleb. Ball deep.
As far as I know, the company was very specialized and didn't have a very international reach in terms of supply. So I think that's the mainstream theory, and I won't get into any others.
Well,
look, I agree with you.
There has been some times where he had done some studio sessions with some people that he wasn't credited on, where he had been traveling. He called around to local music stores to get Ernieball Musicman, and they weren't available. And then he had Matt Bruck call around to like 10 or 15 different distributors, and some of them said 10 to 15 months before they could get him one. And he thought, no 17, 18-year-old kid is going to wait a year to buy one of my guitars. Like, that's not fair. I wouldn't wait a year.
And there was a huge demand. Huge demand.
Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on Alex Van Halen's tone on this album?
Best drum sound he's ever had.
Yeah, I agree. It's just for unlawful carnal knowledge. The tone on there just times 10.
It's like they gave him a piece of what he could look forward to, and then he just ran with it and made it even bigger.
But you know what's funny? And you were talking about, like, they still weren't happy with the tone. And there's an interview, I think it's like 97 or something. I think it's actually on the Australian interview that they did. And it's with Eddie and Alex, and I think Eddie's like, we're still trying to find that drum tone, so just don't know what it is. And I'm just like, what the hell are you even talking about? I mean, you guys have peaked in terms of drum sound. What more could you possibly be looking for? Anyway, we'll never know, I suppose, what they were looking for.
Yeah. And this Mike Plotnick, who was one of the sound engineers on this album, he said Alex was doing all kinds of tape configurations on his snare, and he's like, "You're Alex Van Halen. You have the most recognizable snare sound in rock and roll. Why are you chasing something different or something more or bigger?" And man, he does have a recognizable snare sound on this album. It's like elevated to 15, and man, I'll tell you what, seeing them live, he was just as good live. Alex was running that show, with Eddie by his side, truly.
But then again, one thing, and I think Brad will agree with me, is that you're always tone chasing, you're always tweaking your sound, So at the end of the day, it's just it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I think you're always trying to tweak, you're always trying to find that thing that's inside your head. That's you can always get close, and sometimes you think you've finally got there, and then the next day you turn your amp on, or you turn whatever it is on that you're trying to get the sound out of, and it sounds slightly different to what you want. So you continue to chase that tone. It's what we do. We're perfectionists, we all as musicians do that. I don't really know, for example, one guitar player that I'm friends with, or people that I'm aware of, that actually are happy with their guitar tone and never want to change it and say, that's it for the rest of my life, I'm done. Because, you get there, and then all of a sudden, once you get there, you go, no, I want to change this, I want to do that, I want a little bit more tightness on the bottom end, I want to be a bit wolfier but tight, and then you start chasing that. I think that's the beautiful thing about guitar playing, and that's one of the things that, we've all learned from Ed. He was chasing tone all the time, changing things all the time. So,
and that's what I like about the Van Halens, because we've just asked that question a couple of minutes ago. the Rev was just talking about how Alex was trying different configurations with the snare. So we got Eddie over here tweaking, doing different settings, trying to get a different combination, trying to get that wet, dry, wet sound thing going. And Alex, on the other hand, he's over here and he's doing something as well too. So it's definitely a Van Halen trait. He's not just happy with what he had, the previous album or the previous tour. He's looking for something else too, which became more apparent to me when we had Jerry on the last 5150 show when Jerry went through some of the tricks that Alex did, and when we looked at some of the rigs, especially Rev, over the course of Alex's career, and the fact that you said that Alex was running the show when you saw him. You look at the kit that he was using around that era, it had reduced in size considerably, hadn't it, from previous tours? So he was more compact in what he was playing, but that compactness, I think, was projected probably, a lot better. He was confident in that projection, if that makes any sense.
He did say in an interview during this tour that on the Headbangers Ball, I don't know if you guys watched that episode on MTV, but he said the PA systems nowadays are really, really good, and he doesn't have to have the big, huge bass drums and the big, elaborate miking system because the PA systems are better. But going back to the tone chasing, Andrew, Jan Van Halen was known for playing one note for hours on end on his clarinet. One note, trying to get the right tone on a reed instrument. So,
I did not know that.
Obviously,
so he's a jazz musician. So he's sitting there playing this E note, and he's using different inflections to try. It's the same with a fiddle player. He's playing an E note, so he's got a bit of vibrato going, sliding into the note, pulling away. Wow!
And you're a victim.
So they grew up hearing that.
Yep.
So I just want to shout out to Tone Revival Engineering. That's my mate Was.
Was that?
Yeah, tone chasing keeps me in business, mate. I think everyone in Melbourne here, Australia, can vouch for Was as being the guru. So a bit of a shout out to Was. He's been amazing to me with my tone chasing, and he's got me as close as I can possibly get to the ultimate Marshall tone that I've ever wanted. So shouts out to Was. And if anyone wants to, anyone here in Australia wants work done on their Marshall or any amp for that reason, or pedals, he sells stomp tops for your pedals and everything like that. So big shouts out to Was. And
Was,
I'm going to hold you to it.
Done. He's not done. He's always going to be chasing tones, so don't think you got him where he needs to be. He'll want something different. We're going to grab you on the show at some point, or we're going to hold you to you agreeing to come on a previous show. So we might get you on some point with Simon Hosford, and I think we should probably Hosford, myself, and yourself get together and have a bit of a chat.
Awesome. That's Tone Revival's website, guys, there in the chat if you guys want to check out Tone Revival. I know Brad's mentioned Tone Revival on a couple of blues shows that we've done as well. So, yeah, we'd love to get the Tone Revivalist on here. We'd love to. Anytime you want to jump on and talk chasing blues tones or Van Halen tones with us and sharing some of your secrets, please do.
Yeah. Thanks, Foz. I'll get that $50 off you at some point.
Back to this album, guys. Reading a few articles about Bruce Fairbairn, Eddie talked about how he was a great musician, and some of the other producers had different qualities. He said Bruce Fairbairn's quality was his ear and his ability to pull musical things together to make a great album. And Eddie talked a lot about sometimes he didn't know he was recording and he would do a practice take, And then he's like, all right, let's do this one, roll it. And Bruce is like, I was already rolling. Let's use that one. It was great.
Yeah.
I think he captured a lot of lightning in the bottle on this album, just because he knows what is good when he hears it. And sometimes the artist, like Eddie or Alex or Sammy, may have overthought some of the things they were trying to put on the album, where Bruce knew, hey, this is great and we should use this and not overthink it and spend a bunch of time on trying to get something that we may not be able to catch again. And that's one of the reasons why they got the album done in 4 months. And, they did a lot of great things on the mixing part of it versus trying to catch it all on the front end. And Brad, you've done quite a bit of recording in your time. What's your thoughts on his approach with putting together, the content for the album like that?
That's a hard look. I think with looking at the tonality chasing that he did, like on previous records up to Balance, I think it was all a work in progress. Kurt, for some reason, when I listened to Balance, I think he really found everything that he was looking for in that bottom end, because he was very much about that resonance in the low end. Ed, you can even hear it on earlier records, but they weren't quite getting it to what with his tone. To answer your question, I think I've gone around it without answering it, but
do you believe in taking the first take, or do you believe in doing 2 or 3 others to try to get something better?
I think when you try to perfect a solo, you go backwards and you go down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Rhythm playing different story. I think it's important to get a good take rhythm wise, because that's the stuff on top of it. When I say like the color stuff, his rhythm playing would be a lot of resonance and low end, and the rhythm, the lead guitar playing on top would be a little bit clearer and out front. So when he would be tone chasing and doing like a rough run of a solo, and they were recording it, that would probably be the magic. That would be the one that probably worked. If he nailed it, that would be the one they'd want to hear, I reckon. Because when you start perfecting those sort of things and you're trying to go down that rabbit hole of perfecting it,
it's so true. It's so true. It's
and
so
eventually, drawing on my own experience on my last EP I recorded a solo, was great, but I wasn't entirely happy with it. I just kept going backwards, chasing my tail, trying to perfect this emotional solo. Nearly threw my Les Paul through the plaster wall, went out, had a coffee, had a meditation, come back in and just winged it. And that was the best take, so I kept it. And that was what's on there. So what I'm saying is, with Ed, I think he's next level to most players anyway. So even his scratched solos would be keepers, in my opinion. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So he was always probably trying to improve things. But if you listen to a lot of the early Van Halen songs, I'm not so sure on Balance, but you can hear where they're punching him in and out for solos too. If you really pay attention, he might have tried to perfect a solo and gone, leave the first bit, I'll just fix the last bit. You can actually hear it, and it's quite evident, even more so on albums like 1984 and that. Like Jump, that's punched in 3 times to my ears.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Obviously, with good producers and engineers, they can do that and punch something in and do that. So I don't know how to answer your question properly there, Kurt, but I think the scratch solos that he would have done would have been amazing, because he would have just been trying to work it out, what was in his head for the song.
Yeah.
So, for some reason, like Aftershock, Not Enough, like the solo in Not Enough, I reckon that would have been a 1 or 2 taker. I don't think that.
I agree. Absolutely.
Push that too hard, because the more you try and push those to get to perfect them, it's going to start going down that too rigid and too tight, and you're going to lose that emotion behind it.
Yeah. I think even like I Can't Stop Loving You, that's definitely a crafted solo.
One of my favorites, brother.
that
One
is
of
a
my favorites.
crafted solo. He went and he figured out what he was trying to do there and what he was trying to say, in that solo. It's and then like Brad was saying, I think the best solos are the winged ones, where you just go and then you bash it out. And at the minute you start, trying to, tweak it and play with it and go back, you're just undoing yourself. And wing it, man.
Yeah. So according to this an article that I got here, Eddie's saying that 75% of the album was recorded with his peavey, and the rest with his Marshall, and that he's used the Marshall for a lot of the cleaner work, which would be probably backing up what you were saying earlier, Brad. With a lot of those overdubs. So that makes a bit of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I have to agree, like, I think a lot of his solos were planned out. They weren't necessarily just winged as well. So I do believe, like, on balance, there was a lot of thought into what he was playing on solos.
Melodic solos. They weren't just feel.
Yeah. But yeah, the Marshall, as you were saying, Andrew, I think that's a lot of the clearer stuff and a lot of the peaveys have a resonance, like they have a low end resonance and a very sizzly sort of tone to me, and the Marshall has more clear. It's like a growl. I call it the growl, and it's more of a mid range thing, and that works with swallows a lot because when you're playing a solo, you really want your mids screaming so that they really push through that mix, and that would be the ultimate for me, would be to get that balance of play on words, with getting that low end resonance in a Marshall with that growl, and then with your boost, like my Marshall's got like a boost, solo boost, so it's the same tone, just louder. It'd be good to have that with just a mid range push for your solos.
Is it just the EQ boost? Is that what it is?
Just a little bit, yeah. I mean, Slash used to do it. I know we're going topic a bit here, but Slash used to do it with a Boss EQ pedal and scoop the mid-range up.
Do you think that if he had used the Kramer 5150 on this album, he would have, with the PV, it would have, I don't know.
Kurt, did he use the 5150 on this album at all?
Not
the 5150 Kramer, because I don't think.
Yeah, he's been quoted to say that he used the ernieball for the majority of the albums outside of
correct.
Yeah, because the tonality on this record, I couldn't imagine it without the ernieball.
Yeah.
Because
I think if you'd used the Kramer, I don't know, because I mean the Kramer is famous for being very punchy and punching through a lot of the mix and being very standing out quite a bit. That's obviously the wood of 5150. Yeah.
I'm glad you're using your ears, Luca, on that. But in all the research on articles I've read, he makes no reference to the 5150 at all on this album.
I think he used the middle position. He
used the Kramer on Carnal Knowledge for one song, didn't he?
Yeah,
correct.
Judgment Day. Yeah.
Judgment Day. Yeah.
But yeah, he talks about using the middle position on that ernieball a lot on the rhythm tracks for this album,
especially on like Feeling, and especially for that clean sound. He definitely used the middle position. But you see Eddie starting to use a lot of that middle position on a lot of these songs, and I mean obviously going after Balance, especially on like Humans Being and some of those other tracks that they did with Dave, Can't Get This Stuff No More and stuff like that. Yeah, he was starting to use that middle position quite a lot, and even on Van Halen 3, he was going towards that sound as well.
So, Luca, you make a good point. Can't Get This Stuff No More was left over from this album. It was one of the 20. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to get back to your point, bro, that you were saying, Rev, before about takes and all that. When you consider a lot of these riffs, you know, Eddie had been nursing for a long, long time. So certainly from Eddie's perspective, you know, doing a 1, 2, or 3 take as far as the song or the solo is concerned would be just absolutely no problem to him. You know, when you consider, you know, again, we've already mentioned that Amsterdam back, 86, 80, or 84, 85 when that video was released of him playing it. You know, so he'd been sitting on that song for, gosh, at least 10 years. Well, that riff.
Right. Let me play you this real quick. It's a bootleg, so we won't get flagged. I'll only play 5 seconds of it. Give me a second.
That's what you said last time.
Hold on.
That's from 77. Yeah.
Yep.
$1977.
Yep.
With the phaser as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep. So 77. So that's at least 87, 10. That's just about 18 years.
Yeah, and these guys, they bring up bootlegs and these releases, and they didn't consider a song released until they released it on, you know, an EP or an album, and they didn't like the fact that some of the stuff leaked. You know, like the fact that a lot of the different kind of truth stuff had leaked in the past that came out in 77, 78, because in their mind, those weren't songs yet. They were just bits and pieces of songs that they dinked around with in the club, or they were demos. They weren't actually releases. And I mean, think about putting that many albums together, how hard it is to come up with good content and to pull something that you thought in 77 was a great riff, and you didn't have a chance to use it in 77, but you wanted to use it in 94. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't blame them, you know, but people give them a hard time because they're like, oh, you're revisiting, you know, that was an old demo. Well, if it weren't for the internet, you would never know it was a demo.
Exactly.
Yeah, but to be fair though, Rev, most of the people that were saying that around that time weren't Van Halen fans. They were people, you know, grifting on YouTube, you know, making comments about every album that was being dropped to try and get hits and, you know, try and generate YouTube revenue. They weren't fans, bro, because the fans
Trolls.
that, you know, that had identified that would have fully agreed with everything that you've said. They wouldn't have considered that a song. And Sammy talks about that in his book too, doesn't he? You know, that Eddie would sit there and play all these riffs until they'd get a connection, and then then Sammy would be able to sing some lyrics instantly over this riff, and that was what got Eddie excited. If he's playing something and Sammy said, "Oh, wait there," you know, and you know that's how a song's cooking between a songwriter and a guitar player. Wow, that's fantastic. That's great. But yeah, you know, these hacks, YouTube hacks out there who don't even know the Van Halen making those comments. Yeah, I was around watching those comments too on YouTube, bro.
Yeah.
You brought the perfect segue to where I was going to take this show to bring us home. Sammy Hagar. We haven't talked much about Sammy. We haven't talked much about his effort on this album. You know, this being his last album outside of the Best of Both Worlds. Man, I think he was at his peak here, and it ended too soon, my opinion. Live, he blew me away. I remember taking my brother to the Sam and Dave tour, my older brother, and I'm like, "You're gonna when you see Sammy Hagar, he's gonna blow you away." Like, a few years ago when he was with Van Halen and Balance, like he tore it up. He was climbing the rafters and he was giving it his all, and he almost in his solo career didn't give as hard as he did when he was with Van Halen. I think from 5150, OU812, and from Unlawful Carnal and Balance, like Sammy gave it his all. He almost gave more when he was with Van Halen than he did when he gave his solo career. But it's a shame that this was his last album. I wish we would have got one more. I know we talk about humans being and, what could have happened if they would have done one more album. But what's your guys' thought on his performance on this album? And you think about songs like Seventh Seal, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do, Big Fat Money, Feeling, like those are all like huge Sammy songs that he put a lot of talent in his vocals with. And I don't know. To me, it's a shame that this was his last album because I think he was at the peak and he didn't have a chance to go down. He just completely fell off the mountain while he was at the top.
I completely agree.
I think I mentioned it before. The vocal sound on this record, let alone his vocal ability, is phenomenal. So definitely one of Sammy's best vocal albums of all time, in my opinion. The tone that they captured for his voice was amazing. Us guitar heads will never talk about vocals and the sounds that they pull and the effects they use on their voice to make them sound amazing. And they did such an amazing job with Sammy on this record. However, you can't polish a turd. So if he wasn't singing good, then there's no way that it would sound that good. So especially in this era, there was limited, things they did to voices to make them sound better. The vocalists had to actually nail the take. So in my opinion, I think it's definitely one of Carnal Knowledge and this record are my favorite two Sammy vocal records of all time. Without a doubt. He's absolutely slaying it. And honestly, moving forward, if he had done another record with them, that I think I remember, and I mentioned this on the Van Halen deep dive, the Van Halen 3 album we did, the deep dive, I mentioned on there that I was expecting an extension of Balance, like the next step, and it felt like it was too far astray sound-wise. The drums are so lost in the mix on a lot of songs and blah, blah, blah. I mean, but Sammy, in my opinion, if he was still with the band, it would have been a different album.
Did you listen to that vocal track I sent you through Instagram, Brad?
Unreal.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even this song, but Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do, when he's like towards the end and Eddie's doing his chugging and he's like, hey. Like, that's just like, I'm not a singer, but like that gives me goosebumps when I hear it.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good, bro. Sounds pretty good.
How old
I
was
agree with
Sammy
you.
at this point? Sammy was like in his 50s at this point, I think.
Dude.
He wasn't a young fella.
Jeez.
So the best era for Sammy vocally would have been the Carnal Knowledge record, vocally live.
Yeah.
That without a doubt was his peak, and he was in his mid 40s there.
Yeah, Andrew, I'll send you this guy. He took, if you go through his webpage, he does all the Van Halen songs with no vocals, and then some of them with straight vocals, no audio or no music. It's insane. I'll send it to you. It's crazy. I think I sent Can't Stop Loving You or Not Enough. I can't remember which one I sent Brad, but it's incredible.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think Sammy just nails it vocally for me. He's one of my favorite vocalists. and he continued it with Chicken Foot. On Chicken Foot, he sounds great. And I'm going to do a bit of a segue, guys. So I'm mowing my lawn. I've got my headphones on, and I'm hearing the song come on, and I'm not going to tell you what happened because it might be rude, but I just about did something, and just for a second, I thought Van Halen had reunited. I couldn't believe it. But then found out, no, it was Chicken Foot. But that was okay. That filled a gap in my life. But look, I agree with you. I think Sammy is one of the great vocalists. He certainly fits into Van Halen well. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, and I'm glad that we're going to finish on Sammy. It's not only the vocals that Sammy provided to the band on this album, it's the lyric writing, and I've made it clear on a lot of these shows, okay, wham bam, oh Amsterdam, okay, he's going to get a bit of shit from people for that, but at the time, the band were, they were happy with that, but 95% of the songs he wrote tells an amazing story. And what's wrong with singing about love?
Can I just sort of say something here which might throw a cat amongst the pigeons a bit?
Please do.
Brad's going to say something controversial. Let me get my phone out and record this.
Well, honestly, his lyrical content on Amsterdam, okay, he copped a bit of flack for that. But let's just say Ed and Sammy weren't having a lot of problems at that time, and Ed didn't knock the lyrical content. No one else would have a problem with it, but because Ed knocked it,
correct,
then everyone's got a problem with it. So
I agree with you, Brad, 100%.
So let's just put it down to the fact that they were having a bad time and they were picking on each other no matter what they do. They could have sneezed the wrong direction and they would have been picking on each other at that point. So for me, I don't have a problem with the lyrical content of Amsterdam. I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole here and say, this version of Van Halen with this vocalist and their lyrics on this and that. But so be it, man. It's a momentary thing, and you write lyrics for he was writing about their visit to Amsterdam, and he was writing about the highs and lows of being in Amsterdam, and I don't know.
Which,
to me,
it's true.
Brad, let me read you my notes for Amsterdam. The lyrics don't bother me. We had 6 albums with David Lee Roth with some cheesy ass lyrics. Are we really worried about one song?
Well, I mean, Sammy has been knocked for a few things lyrically, and I think every vocalist in Van Halen has written cheesy lyrics, but it's in context of the song, so it's okay. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because you've also got a serious side to Sammy as well, and he would sing about serious content matter, but he also wrote a lot about love.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's not, I mean, you could sit back and say, for me, if you're going to say cheesy lyrics, well, finish what you started's cheesy as well, but it's all brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's brilliant. I think it's so clever to write a song like that. It's a cheesy lyric.
I think his lyrics on this album are way
lyrical
outweigh
content,
the cheesy ones.
The Help for Teacher, they're cheesy ass lyrics to me, but it works for the song. Dirty movies. That's what I'm saying. Because you could go on, on and on. Fire in the Hole. For me, that's just
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem with Gary Cherone. I think he's a great songwriter and singer, and they write for the song. So if people have problems with it, but I'm just going to go back to my main point. If Ed never mentioned anything about it, no one would have a problem with it.
I agree with you.
You're right.
100%, because there's plenty, like the Rev said, there's plenty of other interviews out there where the Van Halens have patted Sammy on the back for his lyrical content. He took them to another level.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, their first #1 album was with Sammy because of the songs they wrote with Sammy. 5150.
Well, look, you guys got to remember it's rock and roll fits a genre. Rock and roll, it's about fast cars, girls, having a few beers, getting together with your mates. That's rock and roll, isn't it? That's, to me,
loud guitars, loud drums, thumping bass.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I also, I also appreciate Dark Side of the Moon, for what that brings to rock and roll, which is completely the opposite of all that. So, yeah,
exactly. And anyway,
even Big Fat Money is also really cheesy as well, if you think about
it.
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to write about? What else are you going to
write?
Really
is.
Let's be honest though. What else are you going to write for that music? Like, it's basically like a rock and roll, Led Zeppelin rock and roll vibe. It's been a long time since rock and roll. Been a long time since that lyrics in rock and roll are cheesy.
Yeah.
If you're going to go
rock and roll.
If you're going to go down a rabbit hole, you can start pulling out any band's lyrics and start making fun of them. But that's irrelevant to the music. So, yeah.
To me, Big Fat Money is Van Halen's "Can't Start the Fire" from Billy Joel. Remember that song?
Okay. You can't start the fire when the world is turning and the world is turning. Yeah.
And then the other one was R.E.M. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah.
It's the It's like this. That's the exact same. Those two songs. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard Big Fat Money was those two songs. It's like every band's got to have that song where they're like, Who knows? I mean, you don't even know what he's singing about in that song. You can read the liner notes and try to memorize them, but yeah. Got a great solo with jazzy tone to it that I like.
And that segues. We were talking about Sammy, but also with his book, knowing full well that he's come out now, sort of saying he wish he had sort of said a few things not so dark about Ed and things like that. He wrote a lot of that when he was disgruntled with the brothers.
This was his least favorite album that he did with them.
I know.
I think everything that followed on the tour, and obviously ultimately him leaving the band, or he was told to leave. Sorry, we don't know.
Overshadowed.
But I think that really messed up his appreciation for the album at the end of the day. He when he thinks of this album, he thinks of the end. And I think that's also what a lot of people also attribute to this album, unfortunately. But
I think it's easy to definitely. He would see that as his least favorite album because of that. Exactly, 100%. That exact reason. Maybe he listening to the album, he probably appreciates it, but it probably takes him back to that moment in time, which was pretty toxic for him. So,
Yeah, and he, someone brought it up in the chat of doing vocals in Vancouver, and part of the negotiation with Bruce Fairbairn was that they were going to do part of the album in Vancouver. I think a lot of people associate that with the fact that the band wasn't gelling correctly, and Sammy needed to get away from the band to do the vocals, but I think it was all contract obligations where they went up there and had to do it up there because he didn't want to stay in the United States for 4 months straight,
Yep.
100%.
And also from a rock and roll perspective too, guys, let's remember this. Some of the greatest rock and roll albums were recorded in 1 week, 2 week, 3 week. So from a modern perspective, Van Halen recording this album in 4 months or 5 months, miles will be when you consider what bands were doing around that time in a 2 week period if you're going to be doing a comparison. So, and we know that, don't we? That chemistry, that concentration, that effort that you have, even from our own daily perspective, is always going to be something that's going to be what's the word? Contain the magic, that spontaneity. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah. And that's sort of like
Have you guys
Dave was
seen my
saying
messages?
earlier as well.
I've been messaging my co-hosts and no one's answering me.
I replied back. It takes a while to go from Washington State all the way to New Zealand. Carrier pigeon. So yeah, we should let's rank the tracks on the next show, because I put a lot. I got three pages of notes, and we went through page 1.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I have a lot of stuff on each song that you guys don't know about or haven't heard.
So I'm keen to come back next Saturday. We normally do the 5150 show fortnightly, and we've got the bass show scheduled with Hoss and his bass player in a fortnight. Do you guys want to come back and do a special 5150 show next Saturday for the ranking of the tracks? I'm keen.
Yep.
Yeah.
How does that suit with you, Rev?
I should be able to, yeah.
Let us know how that goes, if you can. Yeah, if you can do. Otherwise, we can just
going to EVHCon with Rob Johnson in 2 weeks. I forgot to announce that. I'm going to fly over to Boston for the weekend.
Okay. Well, look, I'll tell you what. We'll talk about how we're going to do this then. If you guys want to be,
but that's the 7th, so we're okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool, because clearly we want to hear what the Rev has to say. And Luca, if you want to come back and throw in some rankings for that, for that show, you're more than welcome.
Do you have an unboxing?
I've got an unboxing. I've got a quick unboxing that I want to do. That came.
Unenveloping. Oh, where did that come from?
Can you guys see the stars and stripes there?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Isolate yourself, Andrew.
Oh, no, it's okay. No. I want to see your faces. I want to see your faces with envy. With envy.
I've been holding on to your package for like 2 months. Hopefully I can send it now. You guys are doing lockdown.
Oh. Andrew, you're such an awesome guy. Thank you for coming into my life. My life has never been the same without you. You are awesome, bro.
On a steed, naked.
I think you are one of the best people that I've ever met. You are handsome, fantastic, and so humble.
Daddy. You're my second daddy.
Sign the Rev. Bro, thank you for those nice words. He didn't say that, ladies and gentlemen. I made that up.
I said it in my mind.
But look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so lucky. I'm so fortunate. Here I go. The 5150 show picks.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you very much, Rev. So, if anybody is watching this stream from New Zealand live or on a replay and you want to pick, message me and I'll send you a pick. That's what we can do. If you want to help grow our channel here with other New Zealanders, I've got some picks here kindly given to me by the Rev, and that's your reward. Thank you, brother.
Brad, I'm going to send yours Monday since you guys are open. Finally.
I've got a few Aussies here that are rubbing their hands together waiting.
If not, I'll get on a jet ski and I'll drive them over. Stay for the weekend.
Because we've got a lot of Aussies in this chat here, so like
I know.
Whether they're here now or not, we've got a lot of Aussies here, and they're pretty much all accounted for already from the Aussies in the chat.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. So are you going on assignment for the 5150 show to the EVHCon, Rev?
So are you familiar with the EVHCon?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Been watching it for the last I watched years? Craig. Yeah, Craig and Luke. who's the guy from New York City? Oh, no, yeah, Pete, and there's another guy. Oh, we all know him. It's not Luca.
Jimmy Carr?
It's not Jimmy. No, it'll come to me. But yeah, all the North American EVHs that we know go to it, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I look forward to hearing about it. So the Rev's going to go on assignment. Brad's on assignment with Hoss's band.
At Rob's house, down in the basement. I'm going to bring like 2 or 3 duffel bags, and maybe I can smuggle back some guitars for you guys.
Thank you. He'll pat you down, brother.
Yeah, I got to talk to the wife, but I think I can fly over there for the weekend, stay at Rob's. We'll go to EVHCon, and then I'll fly back home. So if you guys don't know in the chat, look it up. It's at Greenwich Music. Adam Reverb from FU Tone will be there. Scott Smith, the great Van Halen guitar enthusiast, will be there. All the cats.
Awesome. Luca's gone. So, yeah. Well, look, he's coming back. So we'll work out how we're going to do the ranking of the tracks and when we're going to fit that in. But yeah, I'm keen to come back same time, same place next week and do the rankings if you guys are keen. Luca, it's been a pleasure having you on. Brad, the backdoor man, it's always a pleasure. I'm going to be here with the Rock Professor tomorrow with another guest with us, a guy called Crappy Luxury, and we're going to be talking about John Mayall's album A Hard Road, the first album to feature Peter Green, who passed away a couple of years ago too, so we look forward to doing that. And as I say, if you guys haven't already subscribed to Brad Cook's Instagram, here it is. Hold on. Where is it? There's Brad. Is that Brad? There he is.
Yeah.
Easy. Brad Cook Music. And there's the Rev. Kurts5150. And I've put Luca's Instagram
Luca,
account.
Man, it's great to see you, man. I connected with you a little bit in the chat when I first started the show, and you've been a huge supporter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
awesome to
It's
meet
been
you.
great. It's really been great, guys. Really. Yeah.
So I'll put your Instagram account in the on the channel too, so people can follow you there too on the comments, Luca. So help to build your presence on your channel as well. Okay.
No, awesome. Thanks.
Are you done with school, Luca?
Yeah. I'm actually working. I'm actually doing my candidacy to become an attorney.
That was my dream job. I wish I could have been an attorney. I remember seeing that you graduated, and that's awesome. Man. I'm proud of you. That's cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
Oh, we got the first New Zealander in here. I'm going to send you my email, Chris.
Chris Hunter.
Sorry for interrupting, Luca. Sorry.
We now have a legal counsel for the 5150 show if we ever need legal advice. Luca.
Maybe next time we'll get into some of the Van Halen legal stuff. You know, the record deal stuff and things like that. Yeah.
Do you know about it?
Yeah, I can do some research on. We can get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'm totally interested in that.
There I am, Chris. Send me an email. Send me your address. But there is one thing though that you have to do. I want you to do a quick 10-second video unboxing and email it back to me so we can play it on our YouTube channel, please. 10 seconds, that's all we need.
Done.
All right. Who's signing off?
You are.
Brad? All right.
Go for it, kid.
I had to sign on. Now I got to sign off. My lawyer's here. I should talk to him first. All right. Who do we got in the chat? We got Chris Hunter, all the way from New Zealand. Thank you, Chris. Brian Spalding, all the way from Hawaii. Cobra Kai Platoon. Cobra, thank you, man. Nelson Rodriguez, John Z351, Metal Mike 5150, Mikey Mojo. He's still awake on the East Coast. Thanks, Mikey. Talk to you soon, buddy. Metal Mike 5150. I think I might have already said him. Ellen, of course, she's here. Deja Voodoo. And Mike Share Music. Nerd Halen was here. Pete PJ from Australia as well. And anyone else? Helen Winter. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate the support. Thanks for watching the playback. If you're watching this later, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers so Brad and I, or Andrew and I, or myself can do videos on our own, and we can make this thing bigger and better than it is now.
Awesome. Do you want to do a shout out to Warren?
November 3rd, I start my new job. So wish me luck.
Oh, good luck.
Awesome.
Best of luck, man.
Shout out to Warren. All the best to you, buddy. Our hearts and warm thoughts are with you, mate, and prayers. So we hopefully, we'll get you in the chat here again, and all your cheeky comments. We're looking forward to having you back in the chat, mate. And stay safe, everyone out there. Stay safe.
Awesome. See you guys tomorrow. See you, Brad, and everyone. If you want to join us tomorrow for the Rock Professor for the Sunday show, come and hang out with us. Awesome. There he is. Luca, you're a legend. Where are we?
Thanks.
I'm gonna present you guys both. You can have there's where is he? There he is.
No.
There's Luca. And there's the Rev. You guys rock. See you next week.
Balance.
What